object for some advantage. So what kind of advantage are we talking about? So this advantage could be either to catch prey, to obtain its food in form of catching a prey, or it could also be to protect itself from predators. So if you are the prey, in that case you need to protect yourself from predator. So either for catching prey or to protect from predator, an organism often tries to resemble another organism or another object, and that helps. And this phenomenon is called mimicry. So the organism which exhibits mimicry or which shows mimicry is called the mimic, and the organism or the object to which it resembles is called the model. So basically the mimic is kind of resembling the model. So that model could be another organism. The model could also be a non-living object. Now let us take an example. Now, have you ever seen this color changing lizard, or we often call it? So chameleon has the ability to change its color. So you would have seen that when it is surrounded in a bushy area where you have lots of plants, this chameleon changes its color to greenish. Now what happens? The prey will not be able to see the chameleon. So in this case, this chameleon is exhibiting mimicry, and what is the model? Model is the surroundings, right? So now the prey will not be able to see the chameleon, and suddenly the chameleon can come and attack the prey. So that's an example where we see a mimic and a model. Besides that, we have also learned about the melanism moth. That is, the moths which are black in color. Now, this black color of the moth actually helps them. Why? Because they are generally present in the areas where due to industrial revolution, the surroundings are also black in color because of the soot which comes out of the industries. So now what happens? The black color of the moth kind of blends with the black color of the surroundings. So it becomes very difficult for the predator to detect the presence of this moth, and that ways these melanic moths are benefited, like it helps in their survival. So it is an advantage for them. So here the moth again is the mimic and the surroundings is the model. So these are certain examples where we see mimicry. Now, mimicry are of two types. One is protective mimicry and the other one is aggressive mimicry. So let us first talk about protective mimicry. So this mimicry is employed by a prey. So when an organism wants to protect itself, that is protective mimicry. Now in protective mimicry also we have two categories, that is concealing mimicry, where the mimic resembles its surroundings. So the mimic resembles the surroundings so much that you almost feel that the mimic has been concealed with the surroundings. So the mimic kind of blends with the surroundings, and therefore the mimic cannot be detected. So the mimic is the organism which is resembling the surroundings, right? So one example of concealing mimicry could be the stick insect. So if you look at the stick insect, so here you see, suddenly if you look at the image, you will not be able to determine that there is an insect in this image. Now only when you see it very closely, you would see that this is the insect which looks like a stick, and if this insect is sitting on a twig, so it resembles the twig so much. So here the twig is the model and the stick insect is the mimic. So the mimic is resembling the surroundings, which is the twig. So this is an example of concealing mimicry. Similarly, think of the leaf insect which resembles a leaf. So look at this insect. It looks so different than the normal insects, but at the same time it looks so similar to the leaves. So this is also a concealing mimicry, because the leaf insect kind of conceals with the surrounding leaves, and therefore it becomes very difficult for the predator to detect its presence, and that's how it gets protected. So therefore this is a protective mimicry, and this is also a concealing mimicry because the insect is resembling the surroundings. Now the second type of protective mimicry is warning mimicry. Now in warning mimicry, a mimic resembles a poisonous organism. Now this time the organism is not resembling the surrounding, it is resembling another organism, and that too it is resembling a poisonous organism. Now the moment you resemble a poisonous organism, what happens? The predator will not attack you because the predator will get scared. The predator will be warned because the predator might think that this is a very poisonous organism. So therefore the mimic gets protected. So for that, take the example of the viceroy butterfly and the monarch butterfly. Now the viceroy butterfly is not at all poisonous, and it is the edible type of butterfly. So this is the viceroy butterfly, which is edible and non-poisonous, whereas this is the monarch butterfly, which is poisonous. Now what happens? Poisonous in the sense that this is not edible. So if somebody eats this monarch butterfly, he will be killed because this is a poison. Now the moment a predator comes, so the predator will definitely not want to eat a monarch butterfly because the predator doesn't want to die, right? Now since this monarch butterfly is not edible and it is poisonous, so nobody wants to eat this. Now the benefit is taken by the viceroy butterfly. So even though the viceroy butterfly is non-poisonous, but it resembles the monarch butterfly, and therefore it is benefited or it is protected. So the predator doesn't catch it. So this is an example of warning mimicry. That means the viceroy butterfly is resembling the monarch butterfly, which is poisonous, and therefore it kind of gives a warning sign to its predator and therefore gets protected. So that's why it is warning mimicry and falls under the category of protective mimicry. Before we talk about the next type of mimicry, let us quickly talk about Batesian and Mullerian mimicry. So what are these? So Batesian mimicry is a type of, now both of these also fall under the category of protective mimicry. So these are also forms of protective mimicry. So in Batesian mimicry, an edible species resembles an inedible species. Right? Like just now we took the example of the butterflies. So we saw that the viceroy butterfly was edible, but the monarch butterfly was not edible. So that was an example where an edible species resembles an inedible species. Now this is called Batesian mimicry because it was named after the English naturalist named Henry Walter Bates, because he worked on butterflies in the rainforests of Brazil, and that is how it got the name of Batesian mimicry. So when this Batesian mimicry concept came into picture, then the example of the viceroy butterfly and the monarch butterfly was a suitable example of Batesian mimicry. But later on, it was found that the viceroy butterfly was also actually inedible to some extent, and that is when came the concept of Mullerian mimicry, which was named after Fritz Müller, who has worked on this particular concept of Mullerian mimicry, which says that the mimic and the model both are inedible species. So this concept of Mullerian mimicry came in 1878, and then later it was found that both the viceroy butterfly and the monarch butterfly, both of them were inedible to some extent, and that is why this is called Mullerian mimicry. So there was a confusion with these two butterflies. Earlier it was thought that viceroy butterfly was completely edible and monarch butterfly was inedible. So they were considered to be an example of Batesian mimicry. But later it was found that both were inedible to some extent, so they fall in the category of Mullerian mimicry. However, both Batesian and Mullerian mimicry fall under they are different forms of protective mimicry. Now let us move on to the next type of mimicry, which is aggressive mimicry. Now aggressive mimicry is employed by the predator. So it is like aggression. So when a predator wants to catch its prey, so the intention here is aggression, because you want to catch somebody, you want to attack somebody, and for that purpose you employ mimicry. So that is aggressive mimicry. So this is again of two types. One is concealing mimicry, again the same concept. Here the predator resembles the surroundings. So the predator kind of remains concealed from the prey and it blends with the surroundings. Now what is the benefit of that? Now the predator kind of is not noticed by the prey. So the prey will not take any action because the prey will not even realize that the predator is around. As a result, what will happen? The predator will come very close to the prey and suddenly will attack the prey. So an example could be praying mantis. So if you look at the picture here, this insect, praying mantis, it resembles the plant so much, like its color and its structure resembles the plants a lot. So when you look at it from quite far, you don't even see this as a separate insect. You feel it as a part of the plant. So here the model is the plant and mimic is this praying mantis. Now what happens if it has to attack on another organism to feed on it? So that other organism will not even detect its presence. So it is so much kind of blended with the surroundings. So this is an example of concealing mimicry. Now on similar lines, the second type of aggressive mimicry is alluring mimicry. So allure means to attract. So here the predator resembles an object which is liked by the prey so that it can attract the prey. So like how do we attract kids? So you show them chocolates or you show them things that they like, so they get attracted towards you. So in a similar way, here also the predator resembles something which is really liked by the prey, so that the prey gets attracted towards the predator. Now the moment the prey comes towards the predator will attack the prey. So that's the idea behind alluring mimicry. So example could be the mouth of African lizard resembles a flower. So if you actually look at the African lizards, so some of them have such colorful parts near their mouth that they often resemble a flower. So from far, many a times other insects think that there is a flower. So they might come near it thinking it is a flower, and then suddenly the lizard would attack them. Similarly, if you look at a spider, so even the shape and structure of a spider resembles an orchid flower, right? So that also creates confusion for a lot of insects, and therefore they come near the spider. The moment they are quite near, the spider attacks them. So that's the concept of alluring mimicry, where the predator allures the prey by resembling